So we have this website called engageny.org, engageny.org. And on that website, we have a series of resources around the Common Core, including a series of professional development videos that talk about the shifts in teaching that are required to achieve the Common Core. And I'll just talk about a couple of examples. One example is when the authors of the Common Core talked to higher ed faculty and to employers who are providing jobs that provide a sustainable living wage and health insurance. Because we know there are other jobs we don't need those skills, but jobs that actually provide a sustainable wage and health insurance and retirement benefits, when they talked to those folks, what they heard was students need to come out of high school with very strong reading skills, and the kinds of reading that we're going to ask them to do is going to be nonfiction reading. So it's good that students know how to read novels. That's incredibly important, and have that love of literature. But when they get to college, they're often handed textbooks and science articles and analysis of historical events that they have to read. And often students arrive at college unprepared for that kind of reading. Often they arrive at jobs. I was at Aviation High School a couple of weeks ago, where a student was showing me how he uses Aviation High School in Queens. He was showing me how he uses the report from the FAA on what needs to be repaired about a plane. And then he was showing me how he goes over to the plane, because they have a hangar at Aviation High. And he was showing me how he then turns what he reads in that report into repairs to that plane. That level of reading is incredibly challenging, and that is nonfiction reading. So that's one of the shifts that's called for in the Common Core, is a focus on nonfiction texts. And so thinking about when can you bring in those informational texts? When can you read that book about bugs or flowers and get students excited about books that give them information about their world? Another example of a shift that's called for in the Common Core is a real focus on academic vocabulary, right? Because we know there's a huge word gap that students face. Some students come into school with thousands more words than their peers, and that shapes their life trajectory. And so there's a real focus in the Common Core on exposing students to rich words. One of my daughters, her favorite television show used to be Word Girl, which is, I don't know if folks are familiar with Word Girl. If you haven't watched it, you should. It's actually quite good for kids television. And Word Girl, what's great about Word Girl is she loves words, and part of her heroism is about the use of words. And so the Common Core calls on us to focus on the rich vocabulary that students need. In math, I know you're going to do some math work later, the Common Core calls on us to focus deeply on those conceptual understandings that make a long-term difference for students' math success. And one of the things the Common Core authors did is they studied what we teach in the United States around math, and then what our international competitors, who are dramatically outperforming us, teach around math. And they found that the United States leads the world, for example, in patterns. Our students get more patterns questions right than students from any other country in the world. Unfortunately, patterns are not nearly as strong a predictor of future math success as fractions, and our students don't do nearly as well as other countries in fractions. And so the Common Core calls on us to focus on understanding those key mathematical concepts. So one ask of you is to go look at engageny.org, start to learn the Common Core, start to ask teachers in the schools where you're volunteering, how are they integrating the Common Core into what they do? What are they changing about their teaching because of the Common Core? The second ask I want to make of you is I think we have to change how we think about family and school partnership, not just in New York City, but in New York State and around the country. I believe, and when I was a principal, this is one of the things I would say to my teachers, I think every parent wants their child, I know every parent wants their child to be successful. And one of our jobs as educators is to make it easier for parents to be involved. And so one of the things that one of the shifts I think we need to make is that we as educators have to take it as our responsibility to clear the path for family engagement. I'll give you two quick examples that I tried to do as a principal. One was we put the homework on our voicemail of the school. I was a middle school principal in Roxbury in Boston. We put the homework on the voicemail of the school. This was a very powerful thing, because I would say at the beginning of the school year, there's going to be homework every day, and it's going to be on the voicemail of the school every night. And so when your child says, oh, I forgot, now your kids may never say this, but some kids are known to say, I forgot what the homework was today. I'm not sure. This is this familiar at all? I'm not sure if we had homework. I'm not sure it is, but if I call my friend and talk to her for an hour, I'm sure I'll find out what the homework was. Right? And so we eliminated that by putting the homework on the voicemail of the school. It was a small thing, but it made it possible for families to know for certain what the homework was each night. Another thing we did was rather than have these school events where we just have folks talk at people, we started organizing events where parents and kids got to participate in learning activities together. And so we would have math night with math games, like chutes and ladders, and folks would play math games. And what was powerful about that was rather than the 20% that can make it for a meeting and they have to find a babysitter or have the kids stay with grandma, we had 80 and 90% of families in a given grade level coming to those activities because kids could be there. We provide dinner, and we do something fun and academic with kids and parents together. It's very powerful. And now as a parent, I see why that makes such a huge difference. Right? It's very hard in all the things that are going on in your life. It's very hard to take that time to sit and really engage with your child around academics. And so the job of schools, I think, in part, is to create those opportunities. So I ask you to help with shifting a culture where we say parents ought to be involved, and that's just about their responsibility, to parents and schools must be partners, and that is a responsibility both of parents and of schools, and schools have to clear the path. Finally, the last ask I would make of you is to bring a tremendous sense of urgency to our work. I was with the president on Friday. I was in Washington at the White House for the president's announcement about education policy and No Child Left Behind. And the president talked about how those countries that out-educate us today will out-compete us tomorrow. And I think that's exactly right. And our economy then depends on how well prepared students are for college and careers. But I also believe our democracy depends on how well educated our students are. If we want to tackle all the challenges in our society, all the injustices in our society, if we want the world of 35 years from now to be different from the world of today, we need to invest in our children's education. We have to bring that level of urgency every day. One of the things we have on Engage New York is a sample lesson on Letter from a Birmingham Jail, which I believe is one of the most important documents ever created in American history, and maybe the history of the world. A powerful articulation from Martin Luther King about social justice and a call to action around social justice. And one of the things he says in that Letter from a Birmingham Jail, he says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's a familiar phrase. But the next sentence, I think in some ways is even more powerful. He writes, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Wherever I go around the state, one of the points I make is that we as a society have to be committed not just to our own children's education, and not just to our neighbors' children's education, but to folks in the next neighborhood over, and the next borough over, and the town down the road, and the city further away. One of my messages to people is you cannot build walls high enough to separate yourself from community. We are all a single community. We all are, as Dr. King said, tied in a single garment of destiny. And you live that every day by your volunteerism. You live that every day by your parenting. And together we need to have all of our fellow citizens understand how urgent the work is of closing the achievement gap, how urgent the work is of securing the college and career readiness of every student for the sake of our economy and the sake of our democracy. I'm incredibly grateful to you for all that you do. Thank you for what you do, and have a wonderful school year.